Inside every single one of us, our blood is telling a story. It's this complex tale about our health, our habits, even our risks. And a key character in that story, a group of molecules called lipids. And honestly, getting to know them might just be one of the most important things you ever do for your health.
I mean, think about it for a second. How can one tiny drop of blood hold so many secrets? It's incredible. It can literally reveal clues that point you toward a healthier future or, wave a red flag about potential risks down the road. So today, we're going to find out just how it does that. Okay, to make this all feel a bit more real, let's follow someone's story. This is Lisa. She's just at a regular checkout. But this particular visit, it's about to set her on a whole new path to understanding what's going on inside her own body.
So, here's the rundown on Lisa's health profile. Her BMI is 32, which is in the obesity range. She's also dealing with hypertension, that's high blood pressure, and prediabetes. On top of that, there's a family history of heart disease. Now, these aren't just random stats on a chart. Nope, they're all connected. They're clues pointing to a much bigger picture. So the doctor sees all these risk factors lining up and decides on the next logical step. It's time for a deep dive, a complete lipid profile assessment. This test, this is the key. It's what's going to unlock the secrets of what's really happening inside her body. Which, of course, brings us to the main event. So what are these lipids that the doctor is so focused on? Well, think of them as having this kind of double life. They are both absolutely essential for our survival, but when they get out of balance, they can be really, really dangerous. Okay, so on the one hand, lipids are our best friends. Seriously, they build the walls of our cells, they store energy for us, they even produce super important hormones. We literally could not live without them. But then there's the other side. When they're out of whack, they become the bad guy, contributing to things like heart disease, obesity, and this thing called metabolic syndrome, which is basically a whole bunch of conditions all ganging up to increase your risk for major health problems. Let's look at their superhero side for a minute. What you're seeing here is a cell membrane. It's this amazing, flexible barrier made almost entirely of lipids. It protects everything inside the cell, and it's the bouncer at the door, deciding who gets in and who gets out. This is one of the most fundamental building blocks of life. It's just mind-blowing, really. All right, so if you want to understand lipids, here's the main thing you need to know. They're a huge family of molecules. We're talking fats, oils, waxes, the whole shebang. But they all share one very specific trait. They do not dissolve in water. You've seen this yourself, right? Oil and vinegar in salad dressing? That property, being hydrophobic or water-fearing, is the key to everything they do in our bodies. But, and this is a big but, here's that other side of the coin we talked about. When our body's system for processing lipids goes haywire, these exact same molecules become the villain in the story. They're right at the center of some of our biggest health problems. And that is precisely why doctors, just like Lisa's, are so incredibly focused on them. Okay, so to make sense of all this, scientists needed a way to get organized. I mean, how do you classify such a diverse and, let's be honest, kind of confusing family of molecules? Let's take a look. Well, they basically drew up a family tree. You can see at the very top, you've got lipids, the family name. Then it branches out into these major groups like fatty acids, glycerides, and these really complex things called lipoproteins. You can think of lipoproteins as tiny little Uber drivers shuttling cholesterol and fats through your bloodstream. Now, don't worry, you don't need to memorize this chart, but it really helps you appreciate just how complex this family is. All right, so we've covered what lipids are and why they're so important. The next big question is, how do we actually find them? How do we measure them in a blood sample? For that, we're going to have to step inside the lab. But before we get into all the high-tech stuff they use in a clinic, let's start with a really simple test. It's one that perfectly shows off that core lipid property we were just talking about, the fact that they hate water. It's called the emulsion test, and it's super straightforward. First, you dissolve your sample in some ethanol. Then, you give it a good shake. And finally, you add water. And because lipids and water don't mix, the lipids form these teeny tiny droplets that scatter the light, which makes the whole thing turn this milky white color. See? Simple, but it totally works. Now, in a real clinical lab, things get a bit more specific. A classic method is the saponification test. This is where they use a chemical, an alkali, to basically break down triglycerides, which are a major type of fat in your body. And what does it break them down into? Well, it breaks them into glycerol and something we all know, soap. Yeah, they're literally making soap to find the fat. But how do they know for sure that the reaction actually happened? Well, after heating everything up, they add a few drops of an indicator called phenolphthalein. And if it worked, if saponification occurred, the whole solution turns this bright pink color. It's a fantastic, super clear visual sign that, yep, triglycerides were definitely in that sample. Okay, obviously Lisa's blood test is way more advanced than that. It's not just asking, hey, are there any lipids here? It's asking exactly how much. A real clinical lipid panel measures specific amounts of the big players: total cholesterol, triglycerides, and phospholipids. And this is where it gets really useful for a doctor. For example, high triglycerides often point to lifestyle stuff, like diet and exercise. High cholesterol, on the other hand, might hint at a deeper genetic issue. The goal is to get the full, detailed picture so you can actually do something about it. And that brings us right back to Lisa, because now, with her test results in hand, we can connect all this cool science directly to her own personal health journey.
It's so important to remember this. Getting her lipid profile results, that's not a final verdict. It's not the end of the story. It's a roadmap. It's actually the beginning of a new chapter for Lisa, because now she's armed with the information she needs to move forward.
So what's next for her? Well, the path forward is actually pretty clear, and it's all about empowerment. Making changes to her diet can directly affect those triglyceride levels we mentioned. Getting more active helps her body use fats better. And by keeping an eye on her lipids, her blood pressure, and her blood sugar, she and her doctor can see what's working and make adjustments. These aren't just vague suggestions. These are powerful, concrete steps she can take to completely rewrite her health story. You know, one of our sources for this explainer puts it perfectly. It says, understanding the clinical significance of lipids is imperative for the diagnosis, treatment, and management of numerous health conditions. And that really just sums it all up, doesn't it? Getting a handle on these molecules isn't just some boring science lesson. It's absolutely crucial for living a longer, healthier life. So we started this journey with the idea that our blood tells a story. We've watched Lisa learn how to read hers, and more importantly, how to start changing the ending. So that really just leaves one final, very important question for you to think about. Your lipids are telling a story about you, right now, at this very moment. What is yours saying?